Hey, what's up, man? We're Justin and Alex. I thought they were going to do this Halloween review with us.
Yeah, I haven't seen it. Who are you?
I'm Guy.
What?
What?
What's your name?
Oh, that's not important. By the way, are you going to this Halloween party tonight? I'm going to smoke so much weed and have premarital sex with hot chicks. My life is awesome and is going to go on forever.
Oh, okay. Who's that?
What? I don't see anything.
No, I don't. You don't. Are you sure?
Oh, that guy? Dude, it's Halloween. It's just some guy wearing a mask. I wouldn't really worry about it.
I mean, alright.
Yeah. Do you hear that music?
Dude, I think he's getting closer.
No, he's not getting... He's not getting closer. Well... Alright, maybe he's getting a little bit closer.
Yeah, let's go to the woods.
Yeah, let's run to the woods. Let's go.
No, Guy! That lanky motherfucker killed Guy! Ah! He didn't foreshadow this at all by saying he would live forever! Oh, God! The humanity! Why? Ah!
Where the hell is everybody? Guys? Justin, there you are! What are you doing with that knife? Put that down, we got a review to do. That's better. What happened to the rest of the guys?
I have no idea where they went, but two of us can get this done.
Okay, fine. Let's get into it. Justin and I are going to talk about Halloween 2018. Of course, first you've got Laurie Strode from the original movie. She's back reprising her same role, and I thought her character was obviously the most interesting, and that's certainly the hope when you're the focus of the movie like she was. She had been going through post-traumatic stress since the last experience in the first movie, and all she's pretty much been doing is preparing for Michael to come back. She's pretty sure it's going to happen, even though it's been 40 years. And I thought she was a pretty well-written character and made like a strong female character because she's scared. It definitely messed her up, but at the same time, she feels like she needs to confront it and that she does need to kill Michael. She's not shying away from this, even though you can tell she's pretty terrified. Even though she's been preparing for all these years, she's still pretty scared.
Yeah, and it's pretty interesting how they kind of took that, like you said, traumatic experience in the first film, and then you're fast forward into the future now, and you have the problems with her daughter, how like she didn't like the way she was brought up because of that paranoia, and then you have the granddaughter who's like trying to give Laurie more of a chance, and there's this awkward dinner scene in the movie that was kind of weird, but yeah, I mean I think it was interesting how they did that.
Yeah, the dinner scene was great. Like Justin was saying, Jamie Lee Curtis's family plays a big role. The granddaughter wants, her to still, Jamie Lee Curtis's character to still be a part of the family and hang out with them and spend time with them. She cares about her. The daughter is actually pretty desensitized already and kind of doesn't want anything to do with Laurie Strode because of, the way that she brought her up due to her experiences with Michael. She was raised, how to use a gun by the age of 6 and things like that. And she was traumatized and learned to kind of fear the whole world, and she sort of blames her mother for that. So yeah, I thought the interactions between the family and her were great because it shows what an impact and how destructive this whole experience has been. Not only, when it happened, but for so many years later, the drastic impact that something like that can have.
Yeah, I definitely thought the dynamic between the family was something that the director and everyone in charge of this film really carried out well.
And then you've got Hawkins, the police officer that drives around most of the movie trying to help them find Michael. And he's pretty scared. At first I thought it was supposed to be the cop from the original movie, but I looked into it and it's a completely different character. Because I thought that was what was going on with a lot of these characters. It was like they were re-experiencing the terror all over again as Michael came to town. So I thought that cop was, I guess, one of the guys from the first one. And then you got people who are trying to do a documentary about Michael, right? That's where who the movie really opens up on. But they're just sort of there to get killed, you know?
Yeah. That was interesting because the way they opened up the movie, it seemed like those two filmmakers for the documentary were going to play a key role in the film, and you kind of got the feeling maybe these people are going to stick around a while. Next thing you know, they're like the first two people to get killed because they were the ones holding on to Michael's mask, and so he immediately goes for them once he breaks out. And
that was really cool. It plays to that whole, like, is Michael more than human thing, right? Because it's like, how did he even know where the mask was? He knew these people had it, but how did he have any clue on Earth as to where they were and his mask was? And all of a sudden, he just magically shows up where he needs to and kills them and gets it back. And I thought it was a pretty cool scene.
Yeah. I think it's kind of like one of those things because when more in the beginning of the film, the guy's behind him, like, with the mask, and, like, there's this weird energy going on, and maybe it makes you think that, like, oh, well, maybe he just knows where his mask is all the time because of, like, some dark power or something, and he was able to track him down.
Right. And then you got, let's see, who am I forgetting here? Did I cover everybody? Oh, Dr. Satan?
Right, the new doctor replacing Dr. Loomis.
Yeah, who's basically an evil Dr. Loomis, but we'll get to more of that later. I guess I'm spoiling the surprise about his character. But he's like Dr. Loomis. He's there to spread terror. They know he's not as awesome as Dr. Loomis. Sadly, unfortunately, that actor passed away. I regret on camera right now that I can't remember his name. But he passed away in 95, I believe. And he was one of the best parts of the original Halloween. He was really able to amp up that fear that we have toward Michael Myers. And so the torch had to be passed to someone, and so they gave it to this doctor guy. But that was what was so nice about the movie, is it recognized how cool Loomis? Loomis. It knew how awesome Loomis was in the first movie, and so to make up for that, you've got a recording that was either done by the actor back in the day around the time of the film. I'm guessing it was a voice actor who sounds similar to him, who they replaced. But you got this spooky recording from him. You've got Jamie Lee Curtis. Someone even calls her the new Loomis before the movie's over. So she's someone who's suspicious and scared of him and pumps him up to this whole thing. I thought the cop knew him, like I said, because he was really scared of him. So I thought it was a cop from the original movie because he was pretty terrified about the idea of Michael Myers coming to town. So there was, I'd say, like 3 Dr. Loomises, maybe 4 Dr. Loomises in this movie?
Yeah, the best way I'd describe it is that, like, the spirit of Dr. Loomis kind of, like, spread to a bunch of different characters, almost to the point where, like you were saying, they remember from the first Halloween, like, oh, this is happening over again, and now they're, you know, all the wiser to it, and now they're being more of a Loomis about it, for lack of a better way to put it.
The story's pretty straightforward. The only real thing that probably separates this from a lot of monster horror movies is the whole Jamie Lee Curtis damaged thing before. It makes me think of Sarah Connor. It makes me think of Ellen Ripley from Aliens. You know, these women that they've seen the shit, they've experienced the shit, and they're both traumatized and empowered by it. You know, sort of like a double-sided thing, right? Before we really jump into the story, it should help for Halloween fans to know what's important and what's not. So none of the Halloween sequels matter. Not even the second one. The only one that they're counting in this one is the original. I, for one, kind of wish that they somehow found a way to still keep the second one in there, too. Because I really liked the second one, and it was still written by John Carpenter, or at least he was one of the writers on it. After that, his name totally disappears from the franchise. And, you know, the second one takes place over the course of the same night. So it'd be really cool, and then you know how Hollywood loves their trilogies, so you could automatically call this new movie the third movie in the series. But they decided not really go that route. I know part of it was in the original second Halloween, they established that Jamie Lee Curtis is the sister of Michael Myers, and I know that's a big thing that they wanted to get away from. So I think that's why they didn't include the second movie. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think it really mattered one way or the other? Do you think it's better to start with a completely clean slate?
Yeah, I think when I was watching this 2018 Halloween, it was, we had just watched the previous first two, and I think you can actually go into it having watched the second one and kind of like, you know, having in your brain, okay, that's also what happened. But like you said, they also had that one scene where they're like, oh no, like she wasn't, his sister, and that's kind of what gets away from that original second Halloween.
Yeah,
but
they threw
outside
that
of that,
in there.
and the fact that there's no references to Michael Myers getting burnt by Loomis in that room in the hospital and none of that. Like, there's no references to that. But I mean, I think you can play it either way. You can assume that just the first movie happened, or that maybe the first two happened, and either way, I don't think it really takes away that much.
And the other thing I would have liked to talk about is callbacks. There are probably a few I missed in this movie, but there are two that stick out hugely to me. As we previously talked about, Jamie Lee Curtis's character is someone who was traumatized deeply from the last experience. And so they have her almost take the same place as Michael Myers in some of these scenes. There's a scene where her granddaughter is trying to study and pay attention in school, and she peeks out the window just like Jamie Lee Curtis did in the original 80s Halloween. And in that one, Jamie Lee saw, well, who would you think? Michael Myers outside. But who do you think the granddaughter sees this time? She sees Jamie Lee Curtis. And then that's not the end of it. You've also got a great one at the end where Michael Myers, I forget, we only saw it the one time, but he knocks Jamie Lee Curtis out of the window somehow, almost similarly to how Michael Myers is knocked out of the window at the end of the first Halloween. And Michael Myers looks back down there, and all of a sudden Jamie Lee Curtis is gone. The same way that Michael would have been in the first movie. And then I guess the only other callback is the boogeyman thing. They seem really married to the whole boogeyman theme in all these Halloween movies, even the sequels that don't exist anymore. First, it starts out pretty strong with the documentarians going to the asylum that Michael has been kept in since the, since at least the first movie, right? I'm presuming this is the same asylum from the first movie, but that's not really important. Either way, they go to the asylum, right? And there's this awesome part where he pulls up the Michael Myers mask and he's like, "Do you feel guilty, Michael? Say something! Look at me!" And then all of a sudden, bam, cuts to the opening credits. And I liked the, speaking of callbacks from earlier, one thing that I forgot to mention is they have that lovely pumpkin at the beginning of the movie. Just like at the original Halloween when the opening credits were happening, they got this pumpkin that I think was aging. No, it's just stayed the same, right? And then they just zoomed in on it in the first movie. So they do that in this new movie, but the pumpkin is going from rotted to slowly turning into like an actual like carved pumpkin that's still alive and not really rotted and dying yet, right? I thought that was really cool. I just love that music. You can hear that music 100 times and it still kind of puts you on edge when you hear it because you know what it's supposed to mean.
Yeah, the way they did the credits seems very similar to the original Halloween movie and how they set that up.
Right. Aside from the fact that it's not a kid murdering his sister. That's kind of different, right?
Well, I just meant like the lettering and like the pumpkin and all that.
Yeah, fair enough. Jamie Lee Curtis's character suffers from the post-traumatic stress. We already talked about that. And how it's affecting her family. Next, Michael Myers is being moved to a different facility, or maybe they don't really specify why he's being moved.
Well, I think they kind of made it sound like maybe he was going to be executed, or they just wanted to get him a more secure facility. They definitely had like a reason for transferring him. I think they wanted to execute him because I think it was something like, oh yeah, there's no rehabbing him, so like. Yeah.
Right? And surprise, surprise, Michael escapes, and where do you think he's going? He's headed home! He's coming home! He's coming back! And Jamie Lee Curtis knows it. And so she has to hurry and get to all of her family before time runs out. Her family that did not believe her, that there was any intimate threat, impending threat.
Right, and they also kind of skip over the part where, like, of course, we talk about these two journalists get fucked up and killed, and he takes the mask, and
that happens right.
And also like a callback, if you will, to one of the sequel movies where there's some bathroom shenanigans going on. We've seen that in the Rob Zombie and one of the other ones. So, yeah, there was that, and I mean. And from there, of course, the whole thing with her family and just kind of showing up and being like, "Oh, you didn't have your windows locked up or whatever.
You don't have a gun. What's wrong with you?" She shows up all paranoid and ready.
Yeah.
So that was pretty funny. And then a little like one note, I guess, a twist thing that they were trying to go for is, remember I mentioned the doctor in this one is just like the doctor in the original, only he's evil. So there's this scene all of a sudden that you find out that he's going to try and help Myers actually kill the people he's after in this movie, Jamie Lee Curtis's family, starting with the granddaughter, which he already has. And then, of course, classic Michael Myers just kills him before trying to move on to the daughter because Michael Myers doesn't care about anybody or anything. Right?
Yeah, and let's talk about that for a second, because that was a real point in the film where I was really caught off guard and was like, I wasn't expecting this to happen. Seeing the doctor that's replacing Loomis kind of just like going nutso and being like, oh no, we need to keep him for for studies purposes or whatever, and he kills a cop. I mean, you know, he slices the cop's throat, and it's just like, what the fuck when that happened, you know? And
definitely caught you off guard.
So, and overall,
which is what a horror movie's supposed to do.
Yeah, and kind of looking back on it, I mean, I guess it was probably an interesting thing to put in the movie, because I mean, it did catch me off guard, and I wasn't expecting that. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, I think this guy's like overcompensating for like the fact Loomis wasn't there. He had to like try to one up Loomis by killing a cop. Like I think I kind of got like that's what they were trying to do with it.
And then of course it ends with Michael finally arriving at the house and having the showdown between Jamie Lee Curtis and the rest of the family. And do they emerge victorious? Of course they do. The only thing is I was hoping for that little scene that we always get at these lovely movies that suggests our killer has not been defeated. They had one at the original. They had one in the end of the original Halloween, which I thought was fantastic and very creepy. And it just wasn't here this time, which I was a little surprised about. But that's the story, and I think there's only one last important thing to dive into. What is the most absolute important thing in a horror movie? The kills! How are the kills?
Well, if you're asking my opinion, they could have used some improvement. I mean, I can't recall a kill in this film where I was really like taken aback and like, whoa, what the fuck? I mean, maybe the closest to that would be like in the bathroom scene where he kills those two journalists, because like the one guy, he's really like smacking his head against the wall, and he's all like bloody and shit, and he just has to watch as the other has his female colleagues getting strangled to death. I mean, that was pretty brutal. Outside of that, I mean, the rest of the kills through the movie were not like anything special from what I can recall. I mean, it was, I mean, and in part it is kind of good because, you know, you do want to have a few kills that kind of pay homage to the originals where they necessarily don't show everything, and you just kind of like, oh, he picked up the hammer, he's in the room, and you don't actually see the person get knocked in the head, like. But for me, there was just like, after that first two kills, they kind of went downhill from there. I don't know what you thought.
See, I actually kind of disagree with that. I like that it was a little bit more like the old school one, where I didn't think that was the sloppiest, the like most brutal kill in the movie. I didn't think those were them. I thought there was actually this nice slow build, just like there would have been in a classic Halloween movie, where his kills get a little bit more vicious as the movie goes on, and they get a little bit more frequent. And then I actually love this. They don't really do this in horror movies too much anymore. It's about showing you everything. But I like it when another person comes across someone he killed that we didn't even get to see. And it's just like the frightening of it. Because I think that that's part of Michael's thing, like his obsession with Halloween, is he hides like stuff around, or he kills people in ways, or he goes after people in ways that he thinks is going to frighten and freak them out. You know what I mean? It's like the part where he dresses up as a ghost in the first movie, or like when he uses his mother's tombstone. No, I'm sorry, his sister's tombstone to scare Jamie Lee Curtis in the first movie. So a lot of like, he's really into like Halloween, you know? It's not just about murdering people, it's about also scaring and getting a thrill out as well. There's an opportunity in the movie where he can kill a baby, and I think part of the reason he doesn't do that is because there's actually no thrill in it. And what I will say is I didn't think they pulled their punches too much on the kills, because they start out with a kid and a dad dying, like pretty much right away. That's like his first kill as they discover the bus that's been, you know, that he's escaped from and everything. This is the first kills, is like a father and son. Now, granted, they're not too brutal, but to just make a kid like the first kill of the movie, I think that can be pretty ballsy sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, there's ballsy, but the thing is, there's a couple things that kind of bugged me about this film, if I'm being quite honest with you. First of all, I thought there was a little too much attempt at a comic relief. I mean, because you remember that part where, you know, there's this kid there's a babysitter, and like there's this kid, and like, you know, Michael ends up coming into the house, and like instead of being like super scared, like he's like cracking jokes and stuff like that was kind of weird and seemed out of place. And then also like there's this part where you had the two cops that were like talking about like this guy, how this kid, he has like a 5-year-old's lunch because he has like a brownie in his lunchbox. Like there's certain stuff that I was just like, nah, you know, the movie could have done without that. I don't need all like the lame attempts at comedic jokes like that. But I don't know what you thought about it.
No, I'm actually glad you brought that up. That's one important thing that I totally forgot about and sidestepped and totally thought it when I was watching the movie. is it just seems like today in movies there's a lot of attempts to squeeze humor into stuff, and it can take away from dramatic scenes. I don't think the Halloween movie did this too much, but there are certainly moments in the film, like he was talking about, that could have been way scarier if a joke hadn't just been cracked or wasn't cracked shortly after what happened. So, yeah, a lot of the humor undermined, I think, the tension that this film could have had. Certainly, you watch the original Halloween movie, there are a lot less jokes.
And you can have humor in horror films, it's just like, it's out of place when, like, the killer is, like, there. You know what I mean? Like, if he's in the house, if he's right where something's about to happen, and, like, you got these characters cracking jokes, like, it's kind of dumb. Like, I think where it could have been better placed was when they were doing that whole Halloween dance thing, and like the granddaughter of Laurie Strode was there with her like boyfriend, and then he cheats on her. Like they maybe could have fit something in there that was funny. But,
oh yeah, that made me mad too. You know, he doesn't die. The boyfriend caught cheating on her, and you don't even see him the rest of the film. You know, when she was fighting for his life, I bet he was busy getting laid with the other girl that he was busted with. Where is the justice? Where's my dead dickhead boyfriend? Why? Why didn't it happen? Why did he get to live?
That's what I'm saying. Like he should have died. Like instead, what happens is she runs off with the desperate guy that's like was also friends with the two of them, and then tries to make his move on the granddaughter chick, and then like she totally rejects him.
He justifiably gets killed.
Yeah, but it's like okay, that's cool. You killed the pathetic guy, but like you should have let the asshole also get killed.
Right? Yeah. I mean, the nerd had it coming because he was being a horny nerd and hitting on the girl. But why was the dickhead boyfriend not addressed? I'm very upset about this. He was just a plot device as an explanation for why she doesn't have her phone. Because, of course, Jamie Lee Curtis is looking for her family, and it's always super easy in this day and age to find anybody with their freaking cell phone. So he's only in there to break her cell phone, because he gets mad that she's mad that he was just caught cheating on her.
Yeah, it's just...
Where's my justice?
And again, I think that scene was a little out of place without something happening to that guy later on. So I think that was, you know...
I wonder if that got lost in rewrites. That's what I'm wondering, if they had different plans for him before and then rewrote stuff, and they were like, oh shit, we accidentally got rid of our dickhead boyfriend dies scene. Fuck, what are we going to do now?
Yeah, they should have put that one back in, but I remember the other thing that, like, I know you were really critical of when we first came out of watching that film is, like, the way that Michael Myers kind of, like, more or less dies at the end, like the way they finished him off was
very
kind of
underwhelming, and no scene to suggest that he's actually coming back. They just trap him in the basement of Jamie Lee Curtis's house and burn it down. Now, granted, I guess that's a bigger deal than what happened to him in the first movie when he ate like 6 slugs and fell off the top of a house. But I don't care what this movie tells me. You can't erase the memories of those sequels in my head. I remember Michael Myers surviving way crazier shit than just burning alive in a building. I was not so upset about him burning alive in this house in the movie until I didn't get my scene. There was no scene to suggest that he was alive or that he was coming back. That was all I needed. I don't even need you to make the fucking movie where he comes back. I just need you to suggest that he's back or he didn't die.
Yeah, I might have to agree with you on that. I also thought that whole scene at the end, when they're fighting him, could have used some improvement, honestly. I think they could have done just a better job with it in general, but definitely the part where they trap him in the basement, all the women get away scot-free, and he's just trapped in that basement on fire, and it's just like, okay, really? Like,
yeah, the dad did die, which was nice. I'm glad they didn't let the whole family live.
Yeah,
he just mentioned all the
someone in the
daughters.
family died, that was nice, but yeah, I think it really could have used improvement, and I think overall, I'm glad I watched this film because, it was interesting to see, like, oh, this is where things are decades later after, like, the first movie, but Definitely, I like the original 2 better than this one, I'd have to say.
Yeah, interesting premise. I think one of the things that also makes the first one a little bit better is its simplicity. This was obviously trying to go for a more complex movie. But what are you going to do? It's 2018. It has been 40 years. The public needs something a little bit more stimulating than the original. Or do you think they could have stayed a little closer to the original and still made people really happy?
I don't have a problem with like the direction they tried to go, but it's just like we were saying, there are certain beefs that we had with the way they did the film, like the comedic relief in places where it didn't make sense.
Yeah, that's
the
probably my
final
least
scene.
favorite thing.
The final scene lacking a little more intense. It could have been a little more intense for me. And the dickhead boyfriend not dying. I mean, there's a number of things that they just could have improved that would have had me come away with a different opinion.
Yeah, it could have been a better movie. So, Justin, on the show, I've been doing sort of an A, B, and C sort of setup. You can obviously do C plus, C minus, if you want to get into more specifics. Having watched the new Halloween movie and thinking about the sequel and thinking about the original and thinking about the other original sequel, what would you give this movie?
Well, if I'm comparing this movie to like same genre movies, like other horror flicks, I think I would probably give it like a C plus. I think there was enough in there that like I'm glad I watched it, but not much beyond that. Like it's not like, oh yeah. And also I would say if you haven't watched the originals, I don't recommend watching this film. I think you should watch the original first, then watch this one, because otherwise you don't have a frame of reference for anything.
Yeah. Well, do you think that could have been better? Do you think you would have enjoyed this movie better if you had never seen a Halloween film before? Or do you think it would have ruined it? I, for one, think the build-up and knowing what happened in the first movie kind of helps a little bit with the intensity of this one. Or do you think it would have been better cold, you had no idea who Michael Myers was, no idea what the Halloween franchise was, and you just watched it?
No, I think it's better having watched the first film, and the reason is, like the whole. Otherwise, you don't really fully grasp the whole thing with Laurie Strode and how like she was happy. Because then at least you know about her traumatic experience from before. If it's kind of just said to you like, oh yeah, this guy like came after her decades ago, and like I don't know how I feel about that. Like it's.
Yeah.
So, but for me, it's a C plus. What do you think?
I would only just rank it a little bit above you. I give it a B. I think it was a good horror movie. I think it paid enough homage to the original and was different enough to be interesting. I thought Jamie Lee Curtis's character really made it, really sold it. Without her, or had they gone with a different angle, it probably would have been worse. But yeah, why couldn't we kill the dickhead boyfriend? That really bothers me. In any other horror movie in the entire world, that guy would have died. Why didn't he die in this movie? Are we saving him for the sequel? Because I didn't see any indication of a sequel. What do you guys think? We want to hear your opinion in the comments below. This has been Real Talk. I hope you enjoyed us. Happy Halloween, everyone. Where'd Justin go? Justin?
What's the boogeyman?
As a matter of fact, it was.